So a very good evening to all of you. Just to introduce you, Professor Pattanaik right now. Professor Sarmistha Pattanaik is a professor who's affiliated with the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences of the Indian Institute of Technology at Bombay. She's an environmental sociologist by academic training, and her research focus are in the areas of political ecology, social ecology, environment and social justice, sustainability, social and environmental vulnerability of coastal commons and fishes of Bay of Bengal. She's also the associate faculty at the Center for Policy Studies and the Center for Urban Science and Engineering, which are both at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. Her professional strengths in research and teaching include policy and environmental governance, qualitative research methods with a focus on ethnography, environment, and gender and urban ecology. Currently, Professor Pattanaik works on risk, vulnerability, and environmental justice of coastal commons in the Bay of Bengal, and partly on the livelihood, security, and sustainability of coalies in Mumbai. Professor Pattanaik's edited volume with Amrita Sen titled Regional Political Ecologies and Environmental Conflicts in India have just been recently published by Routledge and focuses on the regional political ecologies of environmental conflicts and broadly explores landscape-based analysis of political, economic, and social issues which impact environmental changes, challenges, and conflicts at local and micro-local levels as well. So it's a pleasure to welcome you, Professor Pattanaik, and thank you also very much for making the time to speak to us this evening. So could I invite you to make your presentation? And we will also have discussions associated with your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Durba. So it is really quite generous to you for this humble introduction about me. Good evening, everyone, my colleagues. So I'm very thankful to Professor Durba for giving me this chance and to discuss and deliver this talk on this very important aspect of higher education in India, and particularly in the context of R&D, research and development. So I will start the talk today on the basis of two main dimensions from the theoretical context, and then I'll slowly move on giving the examples from my own association with ITB for the past 14 to 15 years, and also with the universities and the research institutes, and we'll see how it just particularly talking about these outcomes, the positive outcomes, and if it's something critical drawbacks. So we'll see if there is something, and then we'll just take the discussion on the basis of that. So yeah, I have categorized this talk on the basis of three important dimensions on R&D. One is how the research is constituted. So you will find that in the first part, there is some theoretical dimension on the context of knowledge, paradigm of research. And when you talk about research paradigm, how experimental and indigenous it also finds a place in it. And being a trained sociologist, I have tried to incorporate my research expertise as well as, the qualitative methodological underpinning in order to understand the first part. And the second is strengthening research and its contributions. So a number of important sub-themes, you'll find that in this particular category, strengthening research and its contributions, and how they have been discussed in the new NEP 2020 program in all over India, in universities and colleges, as well as the Center of Learning, the highest Center of Learning and Center of Excellence like IITs and Indian Institute of Science. And the third is the assessment of the research potential, quality research, quality parameters of research. So to begin with, the constituents of research, I have started my presentation on the basis of knowledge. So knowledge and knowing, as all of you must be aware of it, they are socially grounded process. The knowledge, this is contextual, shaped by interaction between people, and fundamentally shaped by one's social location in society. So given this understanding, knowledge and knowing, they are contextual. So what sociologists they refer to as, passionality and the ideologies that frame one's life. So, on the basis of the theoretical debate on sociology of knowledge, the classical sociologists Karl Marx and his dialectics, Emile Durkheim and Weber, so Marx, Weber's version and the understanding, interpretation of science and knowledge, Emile Durkheim, who seeks to combine elements of rationalism and empiricism, that talks the classical model of, theorizing the debate on sociology of knowledge. But the post-classical sociologist Karl Manning, in his book Ideology and Utopia, who was an Hungarian sociologist, and his book on ideology and utopia, he asks a very central question about the sociology of knowledge, which tries to understand the relationship between society and knowledge. And his understanding it demonstrated his behavior and his endeavors to solve the issue of, historical nature and unity of mind and life. So he tries to propose in his book Ideology and Utopia about the knowledge, that the task of the study of ideology, which tries to be free from value judgment, is to understand the narrowness of each individual point of view and the interlinkage between these indistinctive attitudes in the total social process. Not only this, but the French sociologist and theorist Michel Foucault, he made a very significant contribution to the sociology of knowledge in the late 20th century. So much of his writings, it is more focused on the role of institutions, medicine, reason in producing knowledge about people, especially those considered deviant. So in his book, The Discipline and Punish and the Bath of the Prison, which I have mentioned here, so Foucault concentrates on the correlation between knowledge and power. Yeah, and he defines that knowledge and power it is socially constructed. So according to Foucault, knowledge is a form of power and it can conversely be used against individuals as a form of power. So as a result, he defines that knowledge is socially constructed. Going further in the understanding of knowledge constructivism, so there in sociology and in anthropology, the scholars they defined the paradigm of research through science as product and process and through social science as well. So here I'll just give a very brief introduction about paradigm of research through Thomas Kuhn's perspective of science as a product and process. So the word paradigm, it was popularized by Thomas Kuhn, one of the most influential philosophers of science of the 20th century, and in his book, The Structure of Scientific Revolution. So it is one of the most cited academic books of all the time, where Kuhn examined the history of the natural sciences, which identifies the patterns of activities which shape the progress of science. So Kuhn cites, here I've mentioned Aristotle's analysis of motion and Plutolem's computation for planetary positions, Lavoisier's application of the balance, and Maxwell's mathematization of the electromagnetic field as paradigm. So going further, the structure of scientific revolution by Kuhn, he asserts that there are important shifts in the meaning of a key term as a consequence of a scientific revolution. For example, Kuhn says that the physical reference of these Einsteinian concepts are by means identical with those of the Newtonian concepts, which bear the same name. So you must be aware that Newtonian mass is conserved and Einstein is conversible with energy. So only at a low relative velocities, these two may be measured in the same way, and even then, it must not be considered to be the same. So here the main point is from the Kuhn's concept of structural scientific revolution is that although there is the shift in the meaning in the key terms associated with this two philosophy of these two scientists, although they bear the same name, but the context and contextual meaning is not the Same. Going further to the paradigm of social science research, similar ideas are also applicable to social sciences as well, where a social reality can be viewed by different people in different ways, which may constrain their thinking and which may ask the reasoning about the observed phenomena. So here I have divided the paradigm of research in the social science from the perspective of positivism. So positivism, the Kantian philosophy, the paradigm which is most popular today among social science researchers, which is called positivism, based on the works of French philosopher, August Comte, and which was the dominant scientific paradigm of the mid 20th century. So, August Comte, his scientific paradigm holds that science or knowledge creation should be restricted to what can be observed and measured. So, positivism tends to rely exclusively on this kind of theories, which the theories which can be directly tested. Not only that, but the social scientists Burdell and Morgan, in their seminal work Sociological Paradigm and Organizational Analysis, they suggested that the way social science researchers view and they study the social phenomena is shaped by uh, two fundamental sets of philosophical assumptions. One is the ontology and the another is the epistemology. So ontology, it refers to our assumptions about how we see the world. Does the world consist mostly of social order or constant change? And epistemology refers to our assumptions about the best way to study the world. Should we use an objective or subjective approach to study the social reality? So here you can see that I have quoted this epistemology and deontology approach, which also refers to adopting a paradigm of functionalism, that if the researchers they view the world as consisting mostly of social order, which is called ontology, and seek to study patterns of ordered events or behavior, and believe that the best way to study such a world is using objective approach, which is epistemology, so that is independent of the person conducting the observation or interpretation. So this is a kind of using the standardized data collection tools like survey or adopting a paradigm. So of date, the majority of social science research, it has emulated the natural sciences and followed this functionalism paradigm. So functionalists, they believe that social order or the pattern can be understood in terms of their functional components. So this is one. And second is that there is an attempt to break down a problem into small components and to study one or more components in detail through the objective techniques, where here it has been mentioned like survey and experimental research. So one is the objectivist techniques called as survey and experimental research, and there is another subjective techniques where social order can be studied through interviews and ethnographics. So a growing number of social science researchers are also attempting to understand the social order using these subjectivist techniques such as interviews and ethnographics. Now, these are the theoretical understanding of the knowledge, the paradigm of research through science, through social science. Now, coming directly to this 2020 NEP, the National Education Policy, through this UN Sustainable Development Goals. So here it is a quote from the renowned, the eminent poet Rabindranath Tagore. The highest education is that which doesn't merely give us information, but to makes our life in harmony with all existence. So in this particular context, the sustainable education and the sustainable educational goals, which was introduced by UNESCO and the United Nations together in 2017, it is a kind of roadmap for bringing together the sustainable educational goals, which are an integral part of sustainable development goals of 2030. So it has given huge importance to the education sustainable goals, or SDG 4, which is dedicated to ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. So sustainable education development goals. It also holds the proposed the view that it eliminates gender disparities in education, and it also ensures equal access to all levels of education and professional training to the vulnerable population and under the vulnerable situations. So, what are the recommendations on experimental and indigenous knowledge? Here, the policy, the higher education institutions, they need to contribute to knowledge creation and innovation. And here, the policy incorporated a four-pillar approach for higher education parameters stated in this table. So we can see that this appropriate curriculum, engaging pedagogy, continuous formative assessment, and adequate support. So these four pillars, it ensures the quality of educational programs to satisfy the aspirations of students and also the major stakeholders of higher education institutions. So here experimental learning is more crucial because it is well suited for the effective implementation of the provisions of National Education Policy 2020 in education programs, and also for achieving the goals of quality education strategically. So it also, this particular policy, it also, this experimental education program, learning, it also further asserts that this experimental learning, it needs to incorporate into curriculum design, curriculum implementation, and assessment of learning. So scholars have also further asserted strongly for this experimental learning by stating that the benefits of experimental learning as an alternative learning mode, understanding of the profession, better employment opportunities, financing of education, and personal development. So not only this, but there are also many good examples which has been stated by National Institute of Technical Teachers Training and a research uh, program in Bhopal, and they have shared its experience on experimental learning and its methods in its institute, like the um, methods of experimental learning through research, through action learning, through project investigation, the problem-based learning, lab experience, workshop, survey, team building, test method, seminar, etc. Apart from experimental research learning, there is indigenous knowledge. So the indigenous knowledge, which is one of the thematic issue in the construction of knowledge, which is socially and culturally constructed as well, and which is also one of the major developmental goal in many of the funding agency program. So this indigenous knowledge system have sustained the test of the time for through the symbiotic relationships and through the living definition of sustainability. So this also brings about the need to include indigenous knowledge to academia through co-creation, validation, distribution, and diffusion of knowledge. So here you can see that I have cited an instance from the community from Amrita University, where Dr. Bhavani Rao, who is the UNESCO chair in Women's Empowerment and Gender Equality Program in Amrita Puri. So she shared that how the indigenous tribal women, who are mainly illiterate women in that particular region, they have uncodified the knowledge to understand the currency, and they use this knowledge to keep track of their the various kinds of the transactions. So here they understand the values of the currency, and just a moment. Yeah, they do fractions, and they know proportions, mental mathematics, all without any formal training. So the knowledge of these indigenous people is built and validated over time. We live in an era of disruption, climate change. The world is moving faster than the pace at which these communities can adapt. So this is mainly how the indigenous knowledge system, it also finds a very important place to show about the efficacy as well as the importance of this research and also this development and also training programs in various kinds of development efforts. Okay, now I'll go to the second part, the strengthening research and its contributions mainly. So here, uh, strengthening research and its contributions, NEP aims to transform the nations and make India a Guru. It has focused in its program, and this is through encouraging the growth of students' academic skills and through uh, bringing about the reforms in the UG and then in the PG structure. So, how far this particular the policy it's going to strengthen the UG and then the PG curriculum as well as the research in the higher level of institutions, in the higher education institutions. It has been debated by many of the scholars in 2022 and 23 as well. So I have uh, drawn some of these scholarly arguments in this contest. For example, Ithel and others in their paper highlighted that the important aspects of this new education policy, and they have compared them with the existing conventional education system. For example, what was the way of mode of this teaching as well as the research prior to 2020? Because before 2020, the last one was in 1968. So after many years, when this particular policy it has now come up and what are its various kinds of pros and cons factors. So NEP 2020 it emphasizes to promote innovations and expected to have varied implications on the Indian teaching system. So it has also laid down framework for its effective implementation. Similarly, Sabyasachi has also stressed upon the development of teacher in Indian universities on Chinese university model. It emphasized that autonomy should be provided to college and university teachers to decide their teaching methodology and support should be provided for research and innovation. Yeah. So this particular uh, the part which is titled as strengthening research and its contributions, I have tried to give it and make it more systematic on the basis of this seven sub-thematic approach. So I'll go one by one in discussing about its role as well as its proposed outcome in the universities, in the state as well as central universities, as well as in the Center of Excellence in Learning in IITs especially. So I'll discuss the reforming the research in the university, research and development cell, which is popularly known as RTC, institutional autonomy, thrust areas of research with local, national, global parities, interdisciplinary research collaborations, academia industry interaction, and research with innovation. So the first one, the reforming the research in the university. So particularly, as I said that NEP 2020 aims to transform the nation and make India a Viswaguru or a global knowledge superpower by encouraging the growth of students' academic, artistic, social, physical, emotional, ethical, and moral facets in an organized framework. So, if we try to understand the UG and PG structure under this particular theme, under this particular focus, yeah. So, what was the status before 2020? So, before 2020, the UG program, it was the 3 years bachelor's degree courses, and PG was the 2 years. Yeah, so the first one is the reforming the research in the university. So, I was talking about the research in the reform in the university as well as in the UG as well as in the PG level. So what was the status before NEP 2020? So before 2020, the UG structure was 3 years and the PG structure was the 2 years. But was there any problem? So the challenge is it just focus on like the courses were primarily discipline specific with very little or no flexibility for the students to choose the subjects from the other disciplines or the other streams. So what was the consequence? So it has been largely found that the UG fee structure before NEP 2020, so the students they were not exposed to the latest technologies. latest innovations, and which was leading uh, to a gap in skill between the education system and then the industry. So apart from that, there is also the research infrastructure in most universities, which was inadequate and insufficient. But the NEP 2020, it proposes a significant change in the UG and PG structure. The UG program, it has proposed that it will last for 4 years, and PG program for either 1 year master course or for 2 years, depending on its approach. So the 4 year UG program, it is popularly known as FYDR, or uh, 4 year degree research, which will be divided into two parts, so each of 2 years. So here you can see that the first part, it focus on providing students with a broad-based education covering subjects from various streams. The students can choose their subjects based on their interest and aptitude. It will also allow them to choose a combination of subjects that suit their career focus. uh, and part two is basically more specialized, and here the students will focus on their chosen subject and may take it as a major, and it includes practical training, intensive project work, which also provides students with hands-on experience. So this 2 year specialization in the second year, in the second and third years, will also include practical training and internship, and this will give the students the practice with more experience. Yeah, so NEP 2020, so there are some major implications for this FIDR, or 4 year degree research. So do we say that if FIDR, or 4 year degree research, will come and it will also replace 3 years program, will there be a very significant change? Of course, yes. So to me, if you just ask, I would say that of course yes, because globally, undergraduate research is a common feature of higher education, and undergraduate students, they publish either independently or jointly with their supervisors and supervising mentors, which is very common in the higher education system in abroad. And in India, slowly it has now been started, and in IIT, it has now become a essential trend and a very necessary trend for the undergrad students in science and technology. So undergraduate research is a crucial component of inquiry-based learning in higher education. Therefore, NEP's proposal to introduce this 4 year degree research program should not be seen as a mere addition of only 1 year addition to college education after 3 years. Rather, it should be looked at from the point of view of how this program is a major initiative to promote research and also produce more focused students with research competencies. And it also provides immense scope for transforming the structure and the process of college education, and also it may favor flourishing the talents which are required for the benefits of a larger society and the larger social order in the educational system. So therefore, here I have mentioned about a link. This is a link where there's a very excellent paper which has been published by our colleague and Professor C.M. Malish, who is a faculty in Center for Policy Studies in IIT Bombay. So there is a paper published in EPW which is titled as "Are Colleges Ready for Degrees with Research?" So here, there is systematically, he has argued about that what are the pros and consequences, critically analyzing the 4 year degree program with research. So this particular paper, it talks about how um, the proposals of NEP, such as multiple entry and exit options, academic bank credits, 1 year master degree program, or 4 year undergraduate degree program. So it that how this FIDR program, it can have the major implications on postgraduate degree as well as on the doctoral level studies also. So students with these 4-year degree research qualifications are directly eligible for admissions to PhD program after they complete it. Yeah, so uh, this is the 1 year or 2 years the PG program, which will be research based to provide students with advanced knowledge in their field of study. The 2-year PG program will be more specialist program, which will provide students with research training and practical experience in their chosen field. So, what are the advantages? So, the NEP 2020 it aims to uh, emphasize that nearly there will be the double of this gross enrollment ratio in higher education to 50% by 2035 from the current gross enrollment ratio of 26.30%, 3% if this particular program will be implemented, FIDR program. And apart from that, the benefits of this new UG and PG structure and NEP 2020 will benefit the students, the education system, and the disciplinary in the multiple ways. For example, in multidisciplinary education, flexibility, practical training, industry relevant curriculum, research orientation, higher employability, international recognition. I have mentioned here about a program in our institute IIT Bombay. So IIT Bombay, it introduced the MA by research program very recently, just last year. So before that, we had the MPhil program. So we had the MPhil program, which continued, started in 1993 and continued till 2021. So it is also a master's program for 2 years, and it was interdisciplinary in nature. So our students, they are doing exceptionally well in the MPhil program, but there are certain pros and cons and constraints for which we had to close the MPhil program, and we have started a new program which is called as Master by Research for 2 years. And we the first year batch it started in 2022. So there was an emphasis on what are broadly called as research skills. So the humanities and social science department in IIT Bombay, when it introduced this ME by research program in the academic year 20 to 23, there was an emphasis on what are broadly called as research skills that are important not only in academia but also in the workplace. So these skills include learning to integrate diverse sources of information, learning to read, think, and write critically, and learning to apply conceptual, analytical, and methodological frameworks. So the program combines both coursework to build students' competence in specific areas and research modules for independent work. Students are also expected to carry out a successful program of research within the duration of their program, and they will graduate in 2 years. So for more details, you may visit these links and the admission structure, the criteria, the eligibility, and everything in detail. It has been mentioned in this. You can find in these links. Another reform is in regard to funding. Reform in funding and a National Research Foundation. So the NEP 2020, it also made the provision for establishing a National Research Foundation, which will provide a reliable base of merit-based but equitable peer-review research funding, helping to develop a culture of research in the country through suitable incentives for and recognition of outstanding research, and by undertaking major initiatives to seed and grow research at state universities and other public institutions where research capability is currently limited, as the research and innovation investment in India is at the current time. So only 0.69% of GDP as compared to 2.8 in the United States of America, 4.3 in Israel, and 4.2% South Korea. So our GDP estimation in research, it is very, very minimal. So therefore, what are the various factors responsible for this poor, GDP ratio and compared to the other advanced countries or the other Asian countries? So that is why, on the basis of this challenge, this NEP program 2020, it introduced this particular aspect of research and development, and it also very strongly debates about teacher student ratio, innovative curricula, credit based resources. So another reform here, I have just collected the data from the report from the British Council, that the optimum teacher student ratio range is expected from 1.10 to 1.20, depending on the curriculum. So not only that, there will be the recruitment, which should be transparent, merit-based recruitments with more faculty incentives. And National Research Foundation and the National Scholarship Portal will also offer enough financial assistance, and the obligations of the institutions are stated in the policy, which will also like to increase involvement of socially disadvantaged groups, reducing the fee structure, bridging the programs for students from poor education background to offer counseling and mentorship services. Then the second one in this particular scenario is called as Research and Development Cell, or popularly known as RDC. So NEP 2020, it envisages the promotion of quality research within the higher education system to enhance quality education, research innovation, technology development. So the integrity of research, innovation, technology development is the foundation of Atmanirbhar Bharat, or the self-reliant India. So one of the objective of this RDC is that it states the establishment of research and development in higher education institutions through NEP 2020 is to undertake and regulate the initiatives in order to ensure that researchers they follow the research ethics and integrity, and they should comply to the ethical code of research and publishing practices at the institutions, universities at national and global levels. All research papers, it should go through a standard plagiarism check, and necessary softwares, it should be made available to all researchers. The next is institutional autonomy, defined by UNESCO. So autonomy is the liberty or the freedom, and institute autonomies in higher education is a functional status given to colleges by university grant commission for giving greater flexibility towards the academic development, and for the improvements of academic standards as well as excellence. So in the last 5 days of the talk series, the resource persons, they have more or less covered up this institutional autonomy in their presentations in various kinds of the thematic talks and the debates. So what more I'm going to cover up in the institutional autonomy, the debate through this NEP 2020. So institutional autonomy, it is defined by UNESCO that a degree of self-governance necessary for effective decision making by institutions of higher education regarding their academic work standards, management, and related activities. So autonomy offers a college to prescribe its own rules for admission, prescribes its courses of study, conduct examination, and devise methods of teaching and evaluation. So autonomy and freedom need to be accompanied by accountability. So therefore, so National Education Policy 2020, uh, it calls for an establishment of stage-wise mechanism for granting the graded autonomy, which I have mentioned here. This graded autonomy, which will be granted to colleges through a transparent system of graded accreditation. Accreditation, that means each college is expected to be developed into either an autonomous degree granting college or a constituent college of university. So this graded autonomy concept in the National Education Policy 2020 aims to encourage the healthy competition between universities, and also it will reward those institutions which perform better than the others. Now, here you can see that there are some very strong assertions on the basis of this institutional autonomy in the higher education institutions, as has been emphasized in National Education Policy in 2020, that all higher education institutions shall be strive to become large multidisciplinary universities and HDI clusters. Over a period of time, all higher education institutions will be classified into research intensive universities. The autonomous degree granting college may or may not be a part of a university. Affiliated colleges will get phased out over a period of 15 years through a system of graded autonomy. So I'll give you a couple of examples from traditional IITs um, and in India, and how there are many such centers or departments based on this um, the institutional autonomy. So IIT Bombay, for example, in IIT Bombay there is a center which is called a Center for Liberal Education. So IIT Bombay Liberal Arts Program, which is coming under this Center for Liberal Education, under its Center for Liberal Education invites you. If you just click on this link, it invites you to its opening page. It will take you to the opening page, and you can find that it is written to choose your own path to arts, engineering, or sciences. To choose your own path into science, engineering, or designing. That means in IIT, the Center for Liberal Education, you are free, you are liberal, you get to design your own degree. You get the freedom to learn. So accordingly, the students, they will graduate with a Bachelor of Science or BS as per their choice. So BS in Natural Science, BS in Engineering Science, BS in Social Science, and BS in Art and Design. As per their choice, they will get their degree. They will graduate with a Bachelor of Science. So not only this, this is not only the example of institutional autonomy in IIT Bombay. There are also many other examples in other IITs. For example, IIT Madras in its MA program, it speaks of itself as serving the goal of providing people with the freedom to make their lives better. IIT Guwahati, it makes a slight shift when it says that in its Masters of Liberal Arts, this program will enable students to make informed judgments and choices, but it also always with awareness and a sense of the ethical implications of those choices. In Hyderabad Central University, the English and Foreign Language Department, it writes further, we follow a modular approach, what is popularly known as the cafeteria system. Students can choose from a variety of courses offered in different areas such as literature, linguistics, and language education, and they can opt for a program that best suits their goals and interest. So therefore, the institutional autonomy is one of the very strong case in point which has been proposed in this NEP 2020 program. And these are the various kinds of the institutes of higher learning and the universities which have already adopted this. So further adoption by the state and the central universities will pave a very strong way, a path of excellence in learning as well as the students' excellence in performance in the higher education. The fourth sub-theme is that transformation of education sector under NEP 2020. So one of the goals of NEP regarding education is that to end the fragmentation of higher education by transforming higher education institutions into larger multidisciplinary universities, colleges, and higher education of institutions or the clusters, the knowledge hubs, each of which will aim to have 3,000 or more students. So therefore, for instance, the recent opening of IIT in Tanzania, uh, it has been based on this particular scheme. The Memorandum of Understanding for setting up the campus of IIT Madras in Zanzibar, in Tanzania, it has been signed between Ministry of Education, IIT Madras, and Minister of Education and Vocational Training, Zanzibar, and in Tanzania, and also in IIT Madras. So this is the first ever IIT campus to be set up outside India. Not only this, there has also been an MOU which has been signed between the Minister of Education and Abu Dhabi Department of Education and Knowledge and IIT Delhi. And this is going to be established as the first campus of IIT Delhi in Abu Dhabi. So therefore, there has been a very strong proposal in the context of the transformation of education in the trans India, in the global arena also, which is one of the most progressive trend, one of the positive factor under this NEP 2020 in the context of R&D. Next is the interdisciplinary research collaborations. So, national education policy, it places strong emphasis on multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research. So, this NEP 2020 also emphasizes that there will be the establishment of multidisciplinary education and research universities throughout the country, which adds to the country's optimism. And these colleges will be on par with the current IITs and IIMs with the goal of demonstrating interdisciplinary education to Indian students. Second is the online program and open distance learning will be available to all universities, and it should be of the same caliber as the programs offered on campus. So therefore, this is also one of the positive trend in the context of online and distance learning programs. And not only this, in IIT Bombay also we have interdisciplinary programs and centers. There are 4 interdisciplinary centers, which is called as the Center for Policy Studies, which is named as Aksang Desai Center for Policy Studies, and Center for Urban Science and Engineering, Climate Studies, and Educational Technology. So these are the interdisciplinary centers in IIT Bombay, which is very recent. Not very recent, but some 10 to 12 years back. And I am affiliate, and my parent department is Humanities and Social Sciences. But I'm also affiliated with the Center for Policy Studies and Center for Urban Science and Engineering because of the nature of my research, which is interdisciplinary in nature. So I have also been involved in the teaching program of Center for Urban Science and Engineering, where I teach the urban ecology part, and I've also jointly collaborated with the faculty members in CUs as well as in CPS in supervising the PhD as well as the master students. So this is a kind of interdisciplinarity which is maintained in the Institute of Higher Learning, like in IITs, and in NEP also. This particular proposal is a very strong welcome trend. This is a very strong component: academia, industry, interaction, and collaboration. See, in the initial part of my um talk, I had mentioned about what are the challenges for this UG and PG structure prior to NEP 2020. And there, because of this 3 years UG program, so there was not a very proper and strong connection between the academia as well as industry. But here you can see that the proposed 4 year the undergraduate program or the degree research program, this will have a very strong connection with the research with industry. So not only that, this academic industry interaction, how it is much more beneficial and as more advantageous. So I have referred this by citing the case from IIT Bombay again. So IIT Bombay has the strong collaboration with the industry also. We have industrial research and consultancy center, and we have also dean alumni and corporate relations. We have society for innovation and entrepreneurship, and office of continuous education and plan, and IDB development relations foundation placement cell. So the detailed function of this particular unit, it has been mentioned here. So how ISSA it works, it is a nodal unit which manages and coordinates all R&D activities, including sponsor and consultancy projects. Office of Dean Alumni promotes and strengthens engagement with alumni corporations. IT Bombay Development Relation Foundation also. IT Bombay's placement cell is responsible for campus placements at ITB. It has an excellent infrastructure to support every stage of placement process. And there is SIAN, a Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, where IIT Bombay very strongly collaborates for technology business incubator. And this is also a platform to support technology startups founded by ITB community. Yeah. The second is that the research with innovation. So NEP 2020 also puts emphasis to find innovative solutions to various complex kind of problems. For that, the higher education institutions, they carry multidisciplinary research and innovative solutions to complex problems through specialized centers. So these are some of the specialized centers like International Center of Excellence, Industry Academia, which are also the Center of Excellence, Research and Data Science and Artificial Intelligence, Center for Sustainable Energy, Center of Excellence in Disaster Mitigation and Management. Uh, Apart from this, when we talk about the research with innovation in ITB, I would like to give the example of research with innovation and entrepreneurship. So we have uh, a school which is called as Silas Mehta School of Management. So Silas Mehta School of Management, where we have equipped technology with entrepreneurship and also with management, and we have R&D strengths in the four broad areas of management, which is called as economics, finance management and accounting, general management, and human resource management. So under NEP 2020, there are also the provisions which is followed for SWAYAM and Diksha and virtual labs which are developed to add the MOOC and educational interface. So School of Management also offers Masters of Management PhD programs. It also recently launched an executive MBA program, and it has also strong connection with industries like Tata and Hindustan Petroleum, Indian Oil, Godrej, etc. So here, I'd like to give the example of SOEM because under NEP, how SOEM has worked very efficiently, and it has been proposed that it will work very efficiently. And in IIT, SOEM has worked very efficiently through distance learning courses and with the credit system as an optional feature. So SOEM and Diksha, these are the virtual labs. Under this NEP program, it has been proposed that this will be developed to add the MOOC educational interface. Under NEP 2020, the colleges and the universities, they will establish credits earned by all registered students from various recognized education institutions. It has been proposed that it will be earned through SWAYAM or online development learning mode. And these will be taken into account while awarding the degrees by the college or the university. So in IIT Bombay also we have a similar kind of online distance learning mode program, which is called as NPTL, National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, which is a project of MHRD which was initiated earlier by seven the traditional institutes of technology in India, along with the University of Science in Bangalore. So the objective was to provide quality education to anyone interested in learning from the IITs. The same is also applicable to SWAYAM as well as the Diksha. There is another example on SWAYAM, the SWAYAM 2 in IITB. This is a case of innovation by design. So IDC, or the Industrial Design Center in IDC, it has launched this particular program, and This particular innovation by design, it has been led by Professor B.K. Chakraborty, who is taking online class for this innovation by design program. So uh, this is a very interesting lecture by Professor Chakraborty. It is available in YouTube. If you'd like to watch, you can just go through this link and you can watch this online lecture. So this MOOC innovation by design, it familiarizes students with the concept of innovation, and it takes them to the journey of design, from starting from the identification of a problem to a final solution, which has a very positive impact on the larger group of the users. So Professor Chakrabarti, he cites various kinds of the case studies. He focus on the various concerns of innovation, and this particular course is very popular as well as interesting for the students. And this course shows how the innovation process, it requires empathy, it requires meticulous effort, it requires constant user interaction and effective collaboration. So therefore, this is the online course. You may visit this link. Okay. So let's come to the third and then the last important component of this NEP 2020 of for this R&D. So this last and final component on R&D, it is called as assessment of the research potential. What are the quality parameters of research? So there are very strong questions. In the first slide, you can see for resource mobilization and the resource pooling, what are the resources needed to run a higher education institution, whether it is in IIT or in NITs or the central and the state universities. How do we mobilize these resources? How do we enable and ensure efficient utilization of these resources? For this, all these questions, the first particular, if not answer or solution, so the strong standpoint is called as funding. To answer these three valid questions, so the first one is the funding through government agencies, which includes National Research Foundation, or through private agencies. So why the funding? It has become one of the most necessary part in the context of this NEP 2020 in R&D. So there are many of the challenges. For example, the challenges, it shows that India's India's spend of GDP on research, it is very minimum compared to the other countries like Germany, US, Japan, and China. So the data from World Development Indicators published by World Bank, it also shows that the World Intellectual Property Organization, the research spend in India is driven by the central government, which accounts only for 45.5% of the total R&D. It spends on R&D 45.5% only, and 41.4% it is spent on industries. So there are various kinds of the challenges for this, um, the way the India spends a very low GDP on research. The challenges, it includes low income, poor health and sanitation, the food shortage, market inaccessibility on account of poor infrastructure, which provide a strong case for lack of increased emphasis on research in India. And in addition to that, again, uh, it has also been focused that apart from 41.4% which attributes to industry, the rest constitutes higher education sector and the state governments. So roughly the 61.4% of this central government's research expenditure is spent in the area of defense, atomic energy, and space research. So here we can see that how uh, there has been, or maybe this proves that how R&D in India is not only in an inadequate situation, but also it is in the lopsided state also. So therefore, the National Education Policy 2020 report, uh, it recently provides for some hope or some light for this research and development by creating a kind of research ecosystem. So the National Research Foundation, the first noteworthy point is that the national NEP provides for a research ecosystem under this stewardship of the National Research Foundation. So according to NEP, this NEP will work towards seeding, funding, coordinating, and monitoring research and innovation initiatives. So it aims at providing the required impetus to grow the R&D agenda by way of building a research ecosystem, and by comprising the government fund towards universities, towards research institutes, and towards industry. So the funding aspect of National Research Foundation, it deserves attention here, because currently the institutions that predominantly fund research, it include the Department of Science and Technology, Department of Atomic Energy, Department of Biotech, Indian Council of Medical Research, Indian Council of Historical Research, UGC, as well as private and charitable groups. So they all will continue to fund research independently based on their objectives as well as the requirements. So NEP also states that these institutions, it will continue to fund research, uh, while the mandate of National Research Foundation is towards centralized funding of research in universities and colleges. So therefore, an amount of some 50,000 crore has been earmarked for priority areas in research over the period of 23 to 28, 5 years. So it is stated that out of this total amount, only 37,000 crore, so which is approximately 70%, will be raised from private sector. That means government will only fund marginally. So therefore, uh, this is something like we can say, how should I put it, this is something like some kind of disappointing situation, because the government should increase the GDP spending on research, which is currently from the existing percentage of 0.75, and it should just increase it to 1.5. So in comparison, we have seen from the data that how China spends more than India, 2% China spends, US spends some 2.8%, so with the global average covering 1.8%. So therefore, the priority should be given to research in state universities and colleges. So here the argument also goes like this, that IT should encourage to seek funding from the alumni and other sources for the research. Of course, ITs are getting funding from its alumni, and in 2023 we have also received the fund from one of its alumni, um, Anand Mahindra, and also we have also received from one of the anonymous alumnus some 160 crore this year in March. So this particular alumnus refused to disclose his or her identity, but we have received from the alumnus. Yeah. Now, there should also be this the emphasis that this new education strategy emphasizes merit-based promotions, which are based on faculty members' annual performance indicator scores, with a large amount dependent on their performance in research and publications or patents, which contribute to the organization and country's intellectual property. So as a result, each faculty member's accountability in the higher education system is based on their research productivity. So the resources to the faculty, this is one of the very important component in the context of in the assessment of the quality of research. whether it is for the faculties or for the students. So external research and funding grant in IITB, it is quite outstanding. The faculty initiation grant for new faculty. Soon after the faculty who joined in IIT, within 6 years, so they get the seat grant amount. So when I had joined in IIT some 14 years before, so the seat grant which I received, it was 3 lakhs for 2 years. So now it has, then it just increased to 5 lakhs, and then now it is the amount has been increased to 7 lakhs for one faculty, and which is approved so under the equipment, consumables, and contingency budget heads. And apart from that, also IT offers CPDA fund, travel grants, equipment grants, sponsored research grants for projects under ICC, then continuing education program, which allows the faculties to conduct courses for external organizations to the institute and so on. So we have the student grants also, apart from their fellowships and teaching assistantships. We have also the research grants for the PhD as well as the master students for the international travels as well. Then next comes the research ethics. So the research ethics, it includes a very strong and a couple of very important points in terms of honesty, objectivity, integrity, openness, transparency, accountability, intellectual property, efficient mentoring, responsible and high quality publication, non-discrimination, and respect to the colleagues, and uh, not to use a kind of language while taking the lectures in the class, and which is not very much satisfactory to the students, and deserve to students and so on. Apart from that, there is also research ethics committee in IITB, with its members who review and approve the research proposals, which is submitted for faculty development fund or for seed grant fund. And the last important point in this particular context is called as collaboration and research network. For these two important points are there to include. For collaboration, the first is the digitization which enable knowledge and resource sharing. I have referred here a very fantastic paper by Muralidharan in one of the journal paper, so which is titled as the New Education Policy 2020, Digitalization and Quality of Life in India. So here this paper, here it refers to the Sustainable Development Goal 4 strategies of the United Nations, which clearly emphasizes that the main aim of the education system, it should be that of serving the quality education, and it has given a fuller understanding of the specific actions which should be taken by all the nations by 2020, and they should also ensure that the inclusive and equitable quality education promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So Muralidharan has developed this research agenda in his paper through coding and digitization for enabling knowledge and resource sharing. The second one is diversity and equity, particularly the women participation in STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So yesterday, Professor Dhruva was mentioning in one of his slides while talking on academic leadership, governance, management, about caste inequality or inequity in academic leadership program participation. So the various data was very clearly showing how there has been a very drastic low participation of faculty members from reserve category. So the diversity is not on this inequity is not on the basis of this caste factor, but also on the gender perspective also, and especially in the research and innovation sector, this particular component is very essential part, the equity and women's participation in the STEM program. So there is a project which is called as Gender Advancement for Transforming Institutions, or which is called as the GATI program, with the objective of promoting gender equity in STEM courses in India. So, national education policies, inclusive emphasis on flexibility of curriculum, and then the STEM program course is a progressive move, I should say, in this regard. Um, so under this NEP 2020, this project GATI, uh, under the Department of Science and Technology, it is a very progressive move, and this program, it has the objective of promoting gender equity in STEM courses in India, which was formally launched in February 2020, and during the time of on the occasion of the National Science Day. But this particular program, it has been a very positive trend for female students admitted in top ranking IITs in India. So this particular data, it shows that in 2021, actually there was a comparison between 2017-18 and 2021. But unfortunately, I couldn't just gather the data from the source based on 2017 and 18 report. But the total number of students enrolled in all these IITs, the data shows in 27 and in 2017 and 18, it was 995, whereas it has been increased to nearly 2,000 students in 2021 to 2022. So this is, of course, and it is a very positive and a welcome trend on the basis of this particular move of this, the gender advancement and transforming institutions program. Okay, so it's already 6:15. So I would conclude this particular talk by very briefly giving this particular the dimension of National Education Program 2020, which NEP 2020 in R&D field is a so to say a groundbreaking document in every meaning of the word. Among other things, the strategy which seeks to address various kinds of the challenges, for example, the pedagogical challenges, structural imbalances, broadening of the access, or as well as to prepare the learners for the workforce for the 21st century. So all this kind of uh, the various kinds of the components, it shows that it is a groundbreaking document in every meaning of the word. However, it is still a challenge when it comes in its full-fledged implementation process. So, democratic India has not yet reached to the actualization of democratic principles in its fullest sense. Um, so yesterday, Professor Psychology also, I just attended the lecture in the last part. So, and I found very uh, beautifully he was arguing and talking about the affirmative action and also the constitution mandates in terms of the education, justice, equality, and uh, the way the education in its fuller sense, which has been envisioned in our constitution under these Indian societies, we can see that still under the strain of iniquities and injustice. So here in this particular context, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's vision of inclusive Indian education system is quite important because he is one among them who dreamed and argued for inclusive Indian education system. So, in this context of sustainable development goals of 2020 or SDG goals for sustainable education development educational programs by 2030, India can afford this NEP 2020 as a very promising initiative of Indian educational system towards building an inclusive society. But if it actually follows all this kind of the democratic principles, So the education policy 2020 unfolds the real spirit of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's education philosophy. So what are the various measures? What kind of the measures should be taken further in this NEP 2020 for a better inclusive education setup? This is still yet to come forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Mr. Pattanaik.